Hello, we are going to start with box class, introduction of classes. The class is a collection of similar type of objects, like an animal is having all types of animal grouped together. Birds are having all types of birds grouped together. So here we are going to start with the introduction of classes. We are going to start with a simple class box in which we are going to compute the volume of that class box. So here is a simple example. First of all, we will create a simple class that have double values width, height and depth of class. So this is a simple class with three variables width, height and depth, and we are going to create one method to compute the volume of the class. For that, we are going to start with volume method. It will return nothing and we are just going to print the volume of class. Volume, width into height into depth. So this is a simple class, but for accessing the data members width, height and depth and member function volume, we have to introduce a main class that will start the execution of the code. For that, we have another class. Here, we will have the main method that will start the execution of code. Here, we will create the object of class box with box my box is equal to new box. New is a keyword. After using the new keyword, the box class will be initialized properly. When you are writing only my box, it will only generate the object of class, but it is pointing to the null. So it is referencing to null. For allocating the memory to the my box object, we have to create it like box by box one is equal to new box. This new keyword will allocate the memory to mybox1 object dynamically, that is runtime. So it is not compile time. So that's why classes are the virtual part and physical part is a object, because objects have the actual value in the memory, actual memory location. So it is a physical entity. Class is a logical entity. Here we will introduce width and height and depth of my box 1. And also we are going to introduce width, height and depth of my box 2. So they all will give us a different my box volume with the different variables. To compute the volume, we will call the volume function of my box 1 and my box 2 of volume. So now we will generate the output of this code. So volume of two different boxes is displayed over here. Okay. So 20 into 20 into 20 and 10 into 10 into 10 gives the output of this. So here, every time we have to initialize the width, height, and depth of the each and every object. So Java provides constructor for this. Directly, we can use a constructor that will initialize all the variables of that class. For that, we are creating a constructor here. So constructor is the same name as the class name. So we will have every time we will create or give initialization to all the variables that is contained within the class. So in this way, we are directly initializing this object, these variables, and when this constructor is called, it is automatically called. This is the default constructor with no parameters, and when we are providing this constructor, it will be override. It will override the by default constructor that Java provides, and if it is not present, the Java will initialize automatically the default constructor with all the variables starting point starting value as 0. Here, when we are calling new box, this constructor will automatically call and all variables will be initialized automatically. So let's see what happens in this case. So here all the volume of all the boxes is same. Why? Because every time the box object is created, irrespective of the object name, it is always initializing the value of width, height, and depth to 10. So it is not expected. Every object should have different values, right? For that purpose, we are introducing, Java has introduced parameterized constructor. So for that purpose, we are using parameters to the constructor that is called as parameterized constructor. Here we will pass parameters while creating the object, and whatever parameters we are passing as the value, that will be overridden here, that will be assigned to the variables of that particular object, and then that volume of that particular object will be created or computed. So here I have to pass 10, 10 and 10. And for the second one, I want 20, 20. So let's see what happens in this case. Here output of each and every volume is different. Each and every parameterized constructor by box 1 and 2 objects is different. And one more thing to note here, that here we are returning nothing as a volume. We are directly printing the volume here. So we can return the values from the method. For that purpose, what we have to do, we have to return it with the parameter data type, and we will have to calculate the volume and return the output to the calling function. Here double volume is created, initialized every time the method is called, and it should return the total volume that is calculated, width into height into depth. So it will be calculated here, and instead of printing it here, we will print it afterwards. We will print it here, and we will return this to the calling function, that is main. return volume. So when we are calling this, we will have to save the volume 1 and volume 2 every time. Double volume 1, comma volume 2. So here volume 1 will have the volume of Y box 1 and volume 2 will have the return value of volume 2 will be saved from my box 2 dot volume, and this volume will be displayed irrespective of the each particular object. Volume of my box 1 can be displayed as volume 1, and in the same way we can print here volume of my box 2. So here in this case output is output my box 1 volume is 1000, sorry, and output of my box 2 is 8000. In this way we are completed the basics of classes. So this keyword is also introduced here. This refers to the current calling object. This refers to the object who called this parameterized constructor. So instance variable hiding is the name of when we are creating the same name of variables and variables of objects and variables to the classes. Here, when we are calling an object, when we are creating an object and passing parameters with the same name as the uh, names that are already introduced in the class, if this width and width is same, so compiler may get confused to which width to be called, this width or this width. So avoid this confusion, whoever calling this parameter as constructor, this will be referred to this dot width. This means what? This class. I am referring to this class. So this dot width is equal to this width, that is parameter whatever I have passed. So this class width will be initialized with this width. For example, 10.0. This class height is equal to height 10.0, and this class depth is equal to depth, that is 10.0. So in this way, this is very important to avoid the instance variable hiding. So here we have completed the classes, the main part, core part of Java. In the next session, we will have introduction to inheritance. That is the basic object-oriented principle in Java. So we will meet you in the next session. Thank you so much.